It's Tuesday, and we have a 10-1 team in this city that's about to face a team that has done some historic whining, really, since they were eliminated last season. Welcome in, everybody. Rob Ellis, I get to hang out with Bill Calarulo today. What's up, Bill? How you doing, my man?
I'm doing well, man. I'm looking forward to it, brother.
My pleasure, my pleasure. And you can catch Bill. Bill is on usually leading right into our show, but he's doing a little double dip today, and we appreciate Bill hopping on. You got the Philly Power Hour each and every Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. right here on JAKIB Sports. You can also catch he's the host of Legal Hands to the Face as well. And you got that Monday at 6:30. You can check out his live show as well. So, Bill, great to be hanging. It's kind of cool, man. We haven't had a chance to talk to each other regarding everything that's gone down with the Eagles, not only this season, but the last game. So let's start with what they've been able to do from this sense. I want to start with this sense because we're going to get to the Sixers later, who just boat raced the Lakers, which is always a beautiful thing, and a bunch of other stuff. But Eagles have been outgained, Bill, by 98 yards, minimal, in some cases more, in the last 4 games, and they've won all 4 of those games. I'll ask you, simply put, how? How are they doing this?
Jalen Hurts is what my answer would be. I said it on the postgame show here on JAKIB as well. It's with this team and with Jalen Hurts, all these stats you got to just throw out the window because not only are they being outgained by over 98 yards, you look at what the Bills did to them on third down. They converted 70% of their third down opportunities in the second half and overtime. You shouldn't be able to win football games when you're letting teams do that. But Jalen Hurts, he leads it, man. His mentality, you look at him on the sidelines. They're down 10, they're up 10. He looks like the same guy.
Look, the reaction after Elliott hit the 59-yarder, I
reaction,
thought
right?
he missed it. Yeah, you would have thought he missed it the way you react. Yeah, he's a poker player. He is stone face.
It's amazing. And I think they all just feed off of that. They feed off of that, the whole team. I said it last night on my show that Jalen Hurts, in my opinion, is the best leader that we've ever had in Philadelphia sports. There's been good ones. I'm not taking anything away from some other leaders, but I don't think there is a better leader that's ever been in Philadelphia than what you see from Jalen Hurts week in and week out.
Yeah, I mean, what he's doing in a very short period of time is nothing short of incredible. It really isn't. I mean, just from he's 33-12 as a starter. I don't know, people fully grasp how hard that is to do, what he and Nick Sirianni have done since they've been together. It's flat out amazing. But you're right. I mean, as great as he's been, you do wonder how sustainable this thing is. The third downs defensively, they've been, conversely, they're very good offensively on third down, but third downs defensively, which leads you to not being able to get off the field, which leads the other team to having a lot more plays, which leads the other team to having a ton of more time of possession, which wears your defense down that's already hurt. You do wonder. I think this is the week, Bill, if I had to say any week, and I know it's easy to say it now because it's what's in front of us, and they've beaten the Chiefs, and they've beaten the Bills, and they've beaten the Cowboys. But you don't want to keep playing that game, especially with this team. We're going to get into it in a minute. I was looking at some of the 49ers numbers. Oh, my God, are they impressive, man.
Yeah, I said it earlier on the Power Hour. As much as I hate the San Francisco 49ers, they are a really good football team on both sides of the football. And look, I know we beat them last season, but they're a better team this year than they were last year for sure.
Oh, they are. They absolutely are. When you add a guy like Hargrave, Purdy's playing better than he played last year. McCaffrey's playing. They've had him the whole year as opposed to making the trade, with Carolina. It's unbelievable. So there's a couple other things at play here that are mildly concerning. We don't know Lane Johnson's status. We don't know Zach Cunningham's status. We don't know Fletcher Cox's status going into this game. So that is really the difference if you look at it. I know they haven't had Goddard, for a couple of games now, but the big difference in heading into this game, and we'll get into the underdog thing in a minute, versus the other games is they're definitely more banged up, at least at this point in the week.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one for me out of all the guys you mentioned is Lane Johnson. You look at the defensive line, and we'll break it down, but you look at the defensive line for the San Francisco 49ers, you need your all-pro right tackle in this football game. But look, the Eagles defense, to me, is not a championship defense right now. That's where I am concerned. I know people are upset about Brian Johnson and the play calling and the game planning early in games, which they have a right to be, and we can talk about that as well. But you just look up and down this defense. They're giving up way too many yards. They've been really bad on third down. They've been really bad in the red zone. And now you're going to throw in an injury to Zach Cunningham for a linebacker crew that was already light with Nakobe Dean being out. And I know a lot of people want Shaq Leonard. We'll see what happens. He's visiting Dallas today.
Yeah.
But what does Shaq Leonard have left? I mean, if you look, he hasn't been the same guy since the back surgery he had a couple years ago.
Multiple back surgeries, yeah.
And, you know, I know Pro Football Focus isn't the Bible, but they do a good job. And you look, he was an All-Pro in 2021. Pro Football Focus graded him as a 79 that season. Well, in 2022, he was graded as a 40, only played 3 games. And then so far this season, through 9 games, he's graded as a 60. So he may not be the same guy, but hey, it could be a win-win if you sign him because it looks like Dallas wants him.
Well, I think too, with him, that's a team that's in contention to be a playoff team. If the Colts were a team that were just going nowhere and they decided, hey, you know, let's just get rid. It's sort of like we akin to. I remember when Denver was letting a lot of guys go on the defensive line. We were saying, why are they just letting these guys walk? But Peyton was cleaning up culture. Leonard's not a culture guy, and if he could play, he'd still be there. You know, I mean, look, is it a stopgap if you don't have Cunningham? Yeah, I mean, here's the bottom line: get him in your place, look at him, and if you feel like he's still got the athletic ability with the back issues, then yeah, why not? But if Eagles fans are expecting that same guy who was dominant in Indy, he's just not. He's just not that guy anymore, or at least not now. He's not.
Yeah, you don't get rid of good players in this league for nothing, and that's essentially what they did. They're still on the hook to pay him his full contract. So if he could play and he was at the level he was, they're not going to cut him. So I agree with you. Me and Seth Joyner talked about it actually on the postgame show. He said the same thing. He said, look, the Colts aren't just going to cut Shaq Leonard if he was still the all-pro linebacker from 2 years ago.
Yeah. All right. Looking at this thing, and right now, the last I checked, they were 2-point underdogs. It's been 2.5, depending on. You know,
I saw it at 3, Rob. I saw it at 3 on DraftKings earlier today.
All right. So my reasoning for, I don't necessarily agree with it, but I think the reasoning in Vegas is there's a couple of reasons. One, it tells you they have serious doubts if Lane Johnson's going to play. But if we get word later in the week that he is, you may see the line move a little bit. But it's not just Lane Johnson. It's the other ones that we just mentioned. So I think it's injuries. I think they pay as much attention as we do to how close to the sun the Eagles have been flying, you know, and not getting burned so far. You know, they realize that. And they also look at what the Niners have done since the bye. You know, they had that 3-game blip, yes, but they're right back to where they were. And they always factor in revenge. So I think there's a lot of reasons. And look, I think it's great from an Eagle standpoint. You want to use anything you want as motivation, great. You just got a little bit dropped in your lap, you know, by the folks in the desert. But why do you think that the Eagles are underdogs in this thing?
Definitely the injuries. You're right. I mean, they must not believe that Lane Johnson and Fletcher Cox and Zach Cunningham are going to be ready to go. I think that's a big factor. But I also think they're looking at the point differential between the Eagles wins and the Niners wins. You look at this Niners team, they're only 8-3, but their point differential, they're 140 net points in the positive, whereas the Eagles are only 64.
Yeah.
You look at the Niners, they've beaten their 8 opponents by an average of over 20 points. Well, the Eagles are only winning their 10 games by an average of 7 points. And we've talked about it. The Eagles haven't had that real dominant win. Miami, you could probably consider that a dominant win. The Tampa Bay Bucks game, a dominant win. But they haven't really dominated the way the 49ers have dominated teams. I mean, look what the Niners did to the Cowboys. That was one of the worst beatings the Cowboys have taken in a couple of years. Yeah. So I think that's what they're factoring in. But you're right, the revenge game for sure. But for me, not to stay on this defense, I think that Vegas is looking at it and saying this Philadelphia Eagles defense is going to have a really hard time stopping all of the weapons that the 49ers have. I mean, you got Deebo Samuel, you got George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, who's on pace for close to 400 touches this year. Mm-hmm. If I'm a Niners fan, that's what I'm nervous about. Can CMC,
you got to slow that down a little.
Yeah, you need him healthy for the playoffs. And look, you don't want to play scared, but you also need to be a little bit smart. And Kyle Shanahan, I think, is – look, I love it. I have CMC on my fantasy team, so I love all the touches they're giving him. But you need this guy healthy. I think
Yeah.
they're being a little bit reckless with Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, it felt like early, and it feels like early in his Carolina career was just like, dude, we're pounding him into the ground, whatever. I mean, I know it's tempting back there because he can do so many different things for you. But yeah, I mean, it's still, I have a hard time getting away from the Eagles' pass defense. Now, I know a lot of people are sitting there probably saying, guys are 10-1. Like, you're picking these things apart. But when you're looking at the matchup, it's something that concerns you. I mean, really, the offset or the difference maker here is if the Eagles can get that pass rush. And that's what, ultimately did the Niners in last year in this matchup. But I'd be hard pressed to believe that Kyle Shanahan is going to use a backup tight end on Hassan Reddick in pass protection. And if he does, he deserves everything he gets once again.
That's what has me so upset. You talked about to start the show. The 49ers have been whiners since that NFC Championship game. I have been going off about that same thing. What's bothered me is this wasn't a fluke injury to your quarterbacks. It wasn't as if Brock Purdy in the NFC Championship game was running out of bounds and pulled up with a hamstring injury. Kyle Shanahan decided to block one of the best defensive players in the league in Hassan Reddick with a backup tight end, and Reddick knocked him out of the game. So I'm so sick of hearing, if we had our quarterback, It was your coach's fault that you didn't have a quarterback. We knocked him out, and then Reddick knocked Josh Johnson out of the game. So, look, I'm excited that they're underdogs. I think that'll fire this fan base up for sure. I think the players are already fired up after what happened. But the sad reality here, Rob, is the Eagles don't need to win this football game. They really don't. When you look at where they've set themselves up at 10-1, they could afford to lose this game, still be the number 1 seed, and the Niners would have to come back here in the NFC Championship game. So as much as I want to see them win, and I'd love to see them shut the Niners up, they don't have to still get to the Super Bowl.
No, you're right. And I tried to point this out to people when I said, I thought this was going to be a struggle. So far, the Eagles have proven me wrong, obviously. But during these 5-6 games, however you want to look at it, I said they could come out of this 2-3 and still be okay. And, and people don't want to hear it. I get it. You want to win every single game, and especially this game. Look, I get it. Just from a fan sensationalized standpoint, from the moment that game ended, the 49ers players, coaches, media have done nothing but cry and whine. And you're right. I just want to swing back to that point. If your head coach who's considered, and I think the guy is an incredibly smart head coach, an inventive head coach, but if you're going to make that choice to block, I would say he was the second best pass rusher last year with a backup tight end, you deserve whatever you get. It's kind of like what's happened in this day and age in general. Create your own adversity and then swing it back the other way. Like all the nonsense that Michigan's done. Yeah. Oh my God, everybody's against us. You mean everybody's against you because you were cheating? Is that what you mean? All this hardship and adversity you're overcoming, the self-inflicted hardship, like the Niners turning this into, hey, if we had either one of our first 2 quarterbacks, guess what? It's tackle football. These are large human beings who get hurt. There's no ifs. You were the ones who chose to go that route, got your quarterback knocked out. That's it. That's the way it goes. Them's the breaks. And it's become this like nonsense. I mean, I Robbie Gould last year mentioning that Jalen Hurts is a system quarterback. I'm like, a kicker is saying this? Like, this is the kind of nonsense that's come from these guys across the board.
It's been nonstop, man. It was all last year, and that's why. And look, I'm sure you've seen it too. We get a bunch of 49er trolls in the chat as well, saying all this, saying all the same things.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, look, the Eagles don't need to win this game, but it would go a long way if they do. And everybody kept referring to this stretch as the gauntlet, and I started saying it a couple weeks ago that I would no longer describe it as the gauntlet because it's a gauntlet for all these other teams that have to come play the Philadelphia Eagles. We are the gauntlet, and they're proving it every single week. But we kind of started this conversation about how much longer can the Eagles sustain being outgained, going down 10-plus points at the half. I think they've been down at the half now 4 weeks in a row.
Yep.
And you're right. They have to put together a full game against this 49ers football team. The 49ers are too good.
I think that of all this, to me, I know how hard it is to go on the road and play in Kansas City. I know how hard it is coming off a bye, but Kansas City hasn't been clicking at all in all cylinders. I think right now the 49ers are. This is the biggest challenge the Eagles will face this year, in my opinion, thus far. But the thing is, and I don't want to just turn this into all the things the Eagles aren't doing well enough. There is a skill. There really is. There is a skill to being able to win when you're not on your A game. And I think the Eagles do it better than any team. They're also a team that's able to adapt in game, I think, extremely well. The difference is, yes, would I like for them to start faster? Of course. But their ability to kind of flip the script, whether it's halftime or at some other time, is remarkable. I mean, just look at Hurts' first half versus his second half in the game Sunday. I mean, you couldn't have a more stark contrast in two guys. He had a 7 passer rating. He threw 33 yards. I mean, it sounds like I'm making this up. 4 for 11, 33 yards, an interception, a fumble, and a 7 passer rating versus 4 for 20, a $167, 3 passing, 2 rushing, no interceptions, and a 134.8 passer rating. That's unbelievable.
It's incredible, man. It really is. And I said this the other day, as angry as I was at the Philadelphia Eagles coaching staff for the offensive game plan that they came out with in the first half, you have to give them credit for not only having the ability to adjust, but the willingness to adjust, because we've seen it so many times in this league where coaches are stubborn and they refuse to change in games and say, hey, I'm going to outsmart the other guy. This was the game plan I put together, and we're going to keep dropping back 50 times and throwing the football. So I loved that Sirianni, Brian Johnson adjusted in that second half, got a little bit more balanced, even started to run some motion, Rob. We don't really see that a lot. They ran some motion.
Yeah.
So they changed some things up. And, one of the play calls that a lot of people have been frustrated with over the last few weeks has been that wide receiver bubble screen.
Yeah.
But you look at that touchdown pass to Devontae Smith was set up because of a beautiful fake to Julio Jones on the bubble screen. Jalen Hurts gives a little bit of a pump fake, safety bites for a half second, boom, touchdown to Devontae Smith. So you do have to look at the offense and take the entire picture, because sometimes plays are called to set up plays later in the games. Mm-hmm. But I was frustrated with the game plan, but hey, thankfully they adjusted and they figured out a way to win.
Well, the Brian Johnson thing is fascinating to me. He's reportedly one of the lead candidates for the Carolina job, as is Ben Johnson, no relation, in Detroit. But that aside, and we'll get into the Frank Reich thing in a little bit because we haven't had a chance to discuss that. That came down yesterday. Looking at what he's done, body of work, and keeping in mind that he's only been an offensive coordinator in the NFL for 11 games here. Are people too harsh on him? Is this a byproduct of our society where it's microwave? You got to come out of the womb, firing on all cylinders here, as opposed to, getting your feet wet and getting a feel for this thing. What's your sense of where things are with Johnson?
I'm so torn on this one, Rob, because when you're watching the games, sometimes it doesn't pass the eye test. You're thinking to yourself, what the hell are they doing? But then you look at the final numbers and you compare the stats from this year to last year, and everybody would agree last year's offense was dominant. Shane Steichen was one of the best play callers we've seen in a long time. Doug Peterson was also a great play caller a few years ago. But you look at the final numbers from last year and you compare them to what this Eagles offense is doing this year, and all the numbers are pretty damn close.
They are. Well, I'm going to give you the comps from last year to this year in a little bit. It's amazing how aligned they are.
Yeah. So, I look at that and I say, hey, maybe we are being a little bit too hard on Brian Johnson. And one of the things that everybody was frustrated with, including myself, to start the season was how bad they were in the red zone. Oh, he's the worst play caller in the red zone. They're sitting there now at number 5.
Yeah, they were 27 at one point.
Yeah, they're number 5 now. And you look at what they've done over the last probably 5 weeks now, since week 6. They're number 1 in the league. I just had Dave Spadaro on my show right before this, and he gave me a stat I wasn't aware of. They have gone 12 straight red zone opportunities with touchdowns. Mm-hmm. So you got to give the offensive coordinator credit, because it isn't easy to score in the red zone. The field shrinks, we know.
Yep.
You get that back of the end zone as your 12th defender. So hey, I'm torn on Brian Johnson. I haven't been happy with all of his play calling, but once we look at the numbers, I think fans are going to be a little surprised how close it is to last year.
I agree. I think we have been a little harsh. I don't like everything either. I'll be the first one to tell you. I think there's some things that just have to be scrapped. I don't know how DeAndre Swift wasn't more a part of the game plan in the first game of the season. I think they got away from the run a little bit at certain points, which has been a complaint forever, right? And what goes back to Andy Reid. So I don't think it's been perfect, but I do think we're a tad harsh on him.
Well, Rob,
shockingly.
This is what I love about Philadelphia.
Yeah.
We are 10-1.
Yeah,
We have a top 10 offense, and you have a coach that just got fired after a 1-10 start, his second firing in the last 2 years, and people are calling for in this town, fire Brian Johnson and hire Frank Reich.
I know. Yeah, let's get the guy who had one win, who can't figure out Bryce Young at all. Let's bring him in.
Love Philadelphia, man. I love it.
It's amazing. It really is. And Nick Sirianni was asked about that yesterday, and he gave you basically, I haven't even time to think about that. I'm worried about look, I don't have any doubt that there will be conversations had, some type of, if Frank's interested, some type of, you can call it a consultant, you can call it whatever. I mean, Nick has always been a guy who said, I always pick Frank Reich's ear, always bend his ear on things. But yeah, I mean, look, whatever it is, if anything you can do to gather more info to help you, I'm in favor of. So if you want to go down that route, go for it for sure. But a couple other things. So Shaq Lawson has basically apologized for laying hands on a fan near the bench. He is sticking to hey, there was some life-threatening stuff being thrown out there, but I shouldn't have touched him, kind of deal. Here's the way I feel about this. I don't know what was being said. Honestly, there may have been something, but the bottom line is whenever you go towards the fans in the stands, it's never really going to end well for anybody. It's not going to end well for you. It's just not going to go well when that's the case. So stay away from the fans.
It's ridiculous. Honestly, I know Sean McDermott also came out and said it was unfortunate that the fan wasn't removed earlier in the game, that they had asked for him to be removed. But you're right. It's not that hard to just ignore the fans behind you. They're far enough away. The link is, I've been on that sideline. I used to work for the Eagles. You're pretty far away from the fans. There's other stadiums like in Kansas City where they're right on top of that sideline. They're not that close to the sideline. So it's not difficult for him to just ignore that fan and to go over and push a fan. I think he should be fined heavily for that. And I don't care what the fan was saying. There's nothing that he couldn't ignore. But hey, Philadelphia fans, we get that rap, but I think this one's on Shaq Lawson.
Yeah, I think so too. I think he's preemptively throwing the apology out there to try and avoid the bigger fine, would be my guess. That would be my strategic guess that that's what's going on. But that was a wild atmosphere on Sunday, late afternoon into evening. It's going to be crazier this week. I mean, it's rare. Think about this, Bill. It's only Tuesday. They're coming off an overtime crazy win where they were down 10 at the half. They were down 10 in the second half as well. Came back and won on a walk-off by Jalen. And we're already on to the next one. And that tells you how hyped up the fan base is for this game with San Francisco. Like, they are at a fever pitch already. I can't imagine what this is going to look like Sunday at 425.
I'm sure you guys saw it here on Sports Take yesterday. I did the Power Hour at 10 o'clock yesterday, excited to talk about the Bills win, and people are in the chat saying, we're already on to the Niners.
100%. I had people in the postgame. I'm like, can we enjoy this one? Can we have the 24-hour rule before we move on to the Niners? I mean, come on.
Well, when the schedule came out, every single fan, probably in San Francisco too, had this one circled. We couldn't wait for this game, and mainly because of the whining that was done after the NFC Championship game. But everybody's looking forward to it. But I'll tell you, I said this morning. I woke up and I put on ESPN this morning. Made the mistake of doing that, Rob.
Yeah.
But Herm Edwards was on. Herm Edwards, former Philadelphia Eagles, and they asked him to rank the NFC teams.
Okay.
Do you know he ranked the Philadelphia Eagles as number 3?
Not even NFC?
Number 2, number 3 in the NFC. He put the 49ers as number 1, and he put the Dallas Cowboys at number 2. So when we talk about the fans being fired up, it's only going to get worse because I think the entire national media is going to be picking the San Francisco 49ers in this game.
I think so. I think what you're seeing from Vegas with the point spread is going to mirror what you're getting nationally. I think this is going to turn into a classic Philadelphia us against them week. And they don't like us, we don't care week. I'm telling you, this is exactly how this is setting up. Like, Debo's already trash talking. You got the national people. I can't believe Herm Edwards, but yeah, you got the national people already kind of dissing the Eagles. I think it's crazy, Bill, but I think nationally the Eagles are viewed as a smoke and mirrors kind of team. They look at the 10-1, but they say, you know what, 10-1's cute, but ultimately, the numbers don't bear this thing out. I'm telling you, man. And it is going to be one of those kind of weeks, which is great. It's great. It's what you love about sports are these kind of weeks. This is a playoff game hype week. And then guess what's next week? Dallas. It's unbelievable this entire season. I mean, we've come on and done our shows the next day 10 out of 11 times to a win. And now we have San Fran. Now we've gone through Dallas, Kansas City, Buffalo, San Fran, Dallas again. I mean, it is just the gift that keeps giving the Philadelphia Eagles.
And what's really crazy, I had a couple of my friends from New York. I'm on a group chat. They're a bunch of Giants fans, but they wanted to point out that Philadelphia Eagles, as we know, are 27-29 in their last 27 out of 29 in their last 29 regular season games with Hurts. But you look at the only two they've lost, the Washington Commanders and the New York Jets. It's crazy because they find ways to beat these really good teams, and the only two they've had have been to some pretty bad football teams.
But that's a little bit of the league.
It is. It is. You look at everybody, and they've always lost to some teams. But let me ask you something I had posed on my show last week, and I'm curious what your take is. I don't think Nick Sirianni gets as much credit nationally as I think he deserves. I think he's a great coach. We've seen the stat now. He's one of only 3 coaches in NFL history to lead his team to back-to-back 10-1 starts, joining
Shula
Tony Dungy
and
Don Shula, which is crazy. So I posed this question. Is there a coach in the NFC, including Kyle Shanahan, that you would take over Nick Sirianni as your head coach? And look, I boiled it down to basically there were 3 coaches that I think would be in the conversation. 4 if you add Dan Campbell. Would you say?
McVay would be in your conversation.
Exactly. You got Sean McVay. You have Pete Carroll, who's won a Super Bowl. You have Kyle Shanahan. And I even threw Dan Campbell in there at the job he's doing with the Detroit Lions. But outside of him, I'm not taking any coach in the NFC over it. And I would go with Nick Sirianni.
I would take Nick over any of those guys. I mean, look, I think you could argue McVay. Some of what's going on with them is just a talent thing. I think you could argue Shanahan, but I'm sorry, head-to-head in a playoff game, Nick beat him. No, I'm taking Nick. Nick. I think he gets disrespected for a couple of reasons. One, he doesn't call plays. For some reason, that's held against him, which it shouldn't be. 2, the annex. I think they hold that against them. There are some people that feel he should conduct himself in a different manner. And I don't know that he came with the boy wonder reputation that Shanahan came with, that McVay came with. And I'll jump to the other conference, but McDaniel maybe has, whatever.
Yeah.
I think those things factor in. It's ridiculous because, again, all the guy does is win. I don't think they take into account coaching also is an emotional thing. It's an emotional connection and an emotional pitch. And he has the ability to get his teams up for games like no other and make adjustments on the fly. He's secure enough in his own skin to allow others to do their thing, and he doesn't have to micromanage. Like, I think he's everything you would want in a head coach. Especially in this town. Could you have picked a coach with a better personality for the city of Philadelphia? Yeah, he's perfect for this. He is.
Absolutely perfect, man. But yeah, I looked up and down the NFC. I mean, a lot of these coaches have career losing records. Look at some of the other ones. But one of the guys that, I don't know if it was a troll in my chat or not, that said, oh, well, we would take Mike McCarthy because he's won a Super Bowl before.
Oh, my, that's a troll.
I don't even think it's close.
Yeah, that's a troll. That's a troll. Yeah. It's like saying Barry Switzer was a great head coach in the NFL because he won a Super Bowl. No, it was Jimmy Johnson's team. So let's But
great. I said to take it a step further, not only would I take Sirianni over every coach, and maybe it's debatable, like we said, on those other 4. Once you add in the head coach starting quarterback combination, I don't think there's a better one in the NFC.
Slam dunk. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Let's get a timeout. We're going to come back. We're going to do those comps that we talked about, and it's going to surprise you. We're going to look at 2022 Eagles versus 23, because I think there is a notion, really on both sides of the ball, especially offensively. Like, oh my God, last year they were light years ahead of this year. All right, we'll see. We'll see when we get back. We got a lot to do today. We're going to dive into the Niners in the following segment. After that, we got a full-blown NFL segment. Sixers destroy the Lakers. I don't want to completely overlook that either. When you put it on the Lakers like that, man, we got to get into that as well. But a lot of ground to cover. He's Bill Colarulo. I am Rob Ellis. We are Sports Take on this Tuesday. I want to tell you about the great folks at Bravo Pizza of Havertown. Yes, I've been going there since I was a little kid. They've been family-owned since 1985. And you know what, man? You just went through the whole Thanksgiving craziness with all that preparation, and you just don't feel like, dealing with that. Well, guess what? Go to Bravo Pizza in Havertown. Here's the great thing. Fresh food served daily, 20 different styles of pizza. They have slices to go. They have the specialized pizza. However you want it, they will make it. But you may not be up for pizza. They have fresh pasta. They have sandwiches. They have wraps. They have wings. They have salads. Bravo Pizza of Havertown is also committed to the community. They have fundraisers for charities, for schools, for Little Leagues, where the proceeds go to those organizations. You could follow them at the Bravo Pizza of on Instagram and Facebook for daily specials, for promotions. They're located at 1305 Westchester Pike in the Manoa Shopping Center in Havertown, Pennsylvania. 1305 Westchester Pike, Manoa Shopping Center in Havertown. Give them a call right now, 610-446-3810, 610-446-3810. Here's a little bit more from Bravo Pizza of Havertown.
I remember getting my heart broken when they lost the Super Bowl in 2004. We're big Eagles fans. We moved to South Philly because of the Eagles. When they won, we went straight to Broad Street, and everybody was going nuts over there, and it was just a memory that you'll never forget.